So comic books then. So you started off with the X-Men. Well, Spider-Man you started off with, jumped in with the X-Men, loved that kind of diversity and how that and the engagement of it. Then who was that writer called?
Chris Claremont.
Yeah, and then you discovered them, and then to help you get into Batman. Yeah, right. So so you've read about a lot of characters, throughout your comic life, and so out of all of them, do you have a favorite character, and why? What draws you to that character if you do have one? Just don't say no.
Yeah, no, I don't have any favorite characters. I don't like to choose favorites. I treat everyone equally.
Who do you most relate to?
This changes on a weekly basis, and I think it doesn't. And my favorite character would be Storm from the X-Men. That's
okay.
I suppose that you could say that is because that's been a constant throughout me growing up reading comic books. And again, I think it was because of that, being wowed by the fact that there was that diversity in that book and in those runs. She just stood out to me as a really powerful but kind person. But then I suppose the other character, would be Batman, if you ask me now. But if you ask me which character do I owe the most to, probably Superman.
Yeah. Oh, okay. How come?
Because again, when I was younger, I grew up with those films, and I'm showing how old I am now. I grew up with those Christopher Reeve films, and I remember that being the first visual kind of live action thing that I saw, where there was this flying man with laser beam eyes, and he was catching fallen women from, then falling off buildings. And I remember just being blown away by that as a kid. And for me, that led to a lot of appreciation for things like Star Wars and the visual side of things when it comes to those things. So yeah, again, there's a couple of them in there, but I think Storm has probably been the most consistent favorite hero of mine.
Okay, so what did you think of Storm then when we read Secret Wars for the Nerd Herd? Were you disappointed? Like, were you like, yeah, cool, Storm's in it?
To be honest, she wasn't really in it that much. She just kind of seemed to have beef with Professor Xavier, didn't she? About why are you taking control?
I know.
I should be in charge.
But leadership issues.
Yeah, they made a kind of I think they kind of put the masculinity on her a bit too much in that book. But without going over all ground, as we said in the Nerd, that book was not kind to the portrayal of women, was it?
No,
realistically,
no, totally. So how different then was, what should Storm be like then? You said she was, badass when she needs to be, but then kind when she needs to be as well. That's what she's like.
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of which run of X-Men you're reading. I mean, as with most of the X-Men, they've had their moments where they've become uncontrollable and they've got to be reined in. That happens a lot. But yeah, generally her character in herself is, she's very strong, strong-willed, and yeah, one of those. I think much like Superman in the sense of he will find a way to do the right thing. She definitely, especially in the earlier books, comes across that way. And she has a kind of maternal thing towards the team as well. When she took over and was the leader for a while, she was a very good leader.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Does she have any standalone books?
Yeah.
Storm? Yeah. Do you have them? Or
I collect the covers and I do collect the Storm issues and stuff and everything. Yeah, there's been a few over time. And she features quite heavily in the Black Panther run as well, because she obviously marries T'Challa. She marries Black Panther.
Yeah.
And then they get divorced later on. Spoilers for everyone.
She's not Wakandan, is she?
Well, yeah, she's from Africa. Yeah.
But she's not. Is she from Wakanda?
So wow, I don't want to spoil too much for you folks, but if you read Marvel Team Up 100,
Okay.
That's the book. Oh, I don't remember the year now, but it's an oldie as far as things go. You'll see that is the first time that Marvel told the kind of the origin story of those two together when they were younger. So go check that out if you want to know
Right.
more about where Storm's from and how that Black Panther thing was when they were
Yeah.
younger. Yeah, and
Yeah.
later they did a kind of, I think it was a mini series as well. They turned that then into a mini series much down the line of
What,
kind of
like
when they
them
were
as
young.
kids?
Yeah, yeah, and the kind of romance that kind of blossomed from
Oh,
that and stuff. Yeah.
nice. That's cool. I think that'd be good for anyone to any Black Panther or Storm fans would be good to get. Would enjoy getting into that. So what about Batman then? What draws you about to him?
What's not to like about Batman?
I
I
know
think
he's
Batman is the again, like I said, younger. Oh, it was Superman all the way, and I will insist today. Superman does not get the love that he deserves. That man is the granddaddy of superhero. Without him, none of this would be possible.
he is like patient zero, and he's like the OG. He is
Yeah, he's
the
the
first
man
one.
that started all of this stuff off. He was the original superhero, realistically.
Yeah,
So yeah, without him, none of this would exist. But Batman is a more, I think, I can understand the popularity of Batman because I think he's more of a modern day hero. He
yeah,
doesn't have superpowers. He, he solves problems with his brain. So I think for a kind of digital world, having a superhero that relies on technology and thinking
yeah,
makes sense that that would be a generation's kind of chosen
yeah.
superhero.
So why not Iron Man then?
Um, Why not Iron Man? That is a good question. I think it's down to the writing. I mean, don't get me wrong, Iron
Yeah,
Man has had some good story arcs, like the Demon in the Bottle and things like
yeah,
that, were
yeah,
really good, classic. But Batman, it's just the writing on Batman at times has kind of just been astronomically good. Like those books that I mentioned before, Death in the Family, The Killing
yeah,
Joke,
yeah.
The Long Halloween, Hush. When it's done right with Batman, it just seems to be up here, like
Next
in
level.
quality. Yeah.
Nice. So is it at all to do with like the darkness, the grittiness of it all?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Like
Like you've
yeah,
got that to play for when you're writing. That's far more interesting than, having somebody like who's just jolly and happy all the time. Like good writing, as they always say, is based on conflict, isn't it? And my
yeah,
word, Batman doesn't come with, like, and you couldn't squeeze any more conflict in there if you try. Even
he's
within himself as a person, he's
yeah,
conflicted all the
he's got
time.
his he's got a good what do you call them? A rogues gallery, and he's got a good fair share of villains to
Yeah,
to engage the readers.
even if you don't have that in particular issues, you've got that conflict within himself.
Yeah,
Batman is always struggling with a darkness within himself, really, as well.
yeah. So like I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago with my friend, and we were talking about the fact that like Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, they've all got like huge runs. Like the
Oh yeah.
Flash, like the Flash is on 763 or something like that, and I know the Batman, Detective Comics is on like 1,000 and something, and it's like um, there's we were thinking like how can these characters, how can people keep writing about these characters for so long? That is so many years of writing about one particular person. I know Flash is a bit different, but but so like it must be a lot of it must be the villains and the conflict. You've got to keep. You can't just write about the goodness of the character, and you can't just write about their values and that kind of thing. You've got to put them in hard situations, and otherwise, the characters are boring.
Yeah.
You've got to give them that thing to go against, and you've got to give them that that wall. And yeah, this I think is something. Like that was a good conversation with me and my friend, and I enjoyed thinking about that. But yeah, you can't have these stories without the bad guys. So like, it's all well and good people thinking up of these superheroes to write about, but there's more pressure to think about the bad guys for them to go up against.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because again, if good writing revolves around conflict, um, the better conflict you can have there, and that conflict comes if that comes in the form of characterization, the better characterization you have for villains that are going to cause that conflict, the better the writing's going to be, isn't it? And
Yeah.
in my opinion, Batman, that book over time, because like you said, that there's huge runs of these things. These are stories that are often being retold time and time again. The amount
Mm.
of times we've had the story about like Bruce Wayne and his parents dying and things like that. So over time, like these stories get told and little bits get added and retconned, and I think that is the beauty of why we kind of like some of those characters, because you kind of get the sense that you're watching something develop all the time, when sometimes you are actually just kind of repeating a story that maybe we've already heard like a long time
Mm.
ago.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I think it's just a great thing to think about. Yeah, like I think, yeah, the bad guys and the villains in comics make comics. Um,
Yeah, they can do. Yeah, and
yeah, they can do. Yeah.
I think for me, Batman does that better than any other superhero. Dare I say, his Rogue Gallery is like my favorite out of all comic books.
Why is that?
Again, I think I like the diversity. I like the
It is.
you
It is
got
incredibly diverse. Yeah.
you got Mr. Freeze, and then you've got the Joker. I mean, what a great character the Joker. I mean, and that must be such a good character. Again, looking at it from a writing perspective, when we say, creating that conflict through characterization, I don't think there's a better character that you would want to write for when it comes to that than the Joker. I mean, it's incredible for that.
I think he is so iconic. Like you think villain, you think Joker.
Mm.
Pretty much, like he is up there in top top three. If you ask anyone who is the first comic book villain, you can name.
Oh, probably.
People who don't know comics will probably say Joker.
Mm.
You know, um, and I think in out in the real world, um, I think the Batman villains are known the most. I think
Yeah, but
because of the movies.
there was always that thing, isn't there? Like, is it Spider-Man villains better than, Batman's Rogues
Yeah,
Gallery? And I think it's very much kind of swings and roundabouts, to be honest. I mean, if Spider-Man is more your kind of hero, I think you're going to prefer his villains. And
yeah,
if you like that dark, edgy stuff, then you're probably going to prefer the Bat villains. But again, you know me, I'm not kind of one that would kind of tell people what they should read or what they won't. I mean, you
yeah.
do you, and you like what you like, and you go
You do.
read that.
Yeah, yeah,
Just be
exactly.
nice to other people. That's all I.
Yeah, let's all be friends. Yay. Yeah, I think I'm going to jump in here with villains and stuff. I think my favorite rogues gallery is the Flash's rogues.
I
Um,
knew you were going to say the Flash.
of course, I was. But I think out of all of them, I think my favorite is going to be Captain Cold, because he's almost like this anti-hero, isn't he? And he's like, he has these values, and he's like, we don't kill anyone, but they're making one hell of a go at causing chaos. I think I'm reading the New 52 stuff at the moment, and I think it was volume 4. I think it was the guerrilla warfare one, and it was when Grodd starts taking over the city. But then it's up to the rogues then to help out, and they're protecting the city then, and it's all and Captain Cold, he's got incredible family values as well with his sister, and he treats the rogues like a family, and I like that. Um, yeah, I think they're a good group, they're a
I've
good bunch.
noticed from us doing the nerd herd stuff together, you do tend to kind of like the anti-hero, don't you? Because when we spoke about Venom and stuff, you warmed to Venom in Maximum Carnage a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's just a bit more depth to them. I think you know, the, like you said earlier, they've got that kind of internal conflict going on. and it's cool to see, and the kind of the thoughts they go through, the emotions they have, how they interact with people and stuff. Yeah, I really like that. But yeah, I think I've always been a bit of a anti-hero, like underdog kind of
Yeah.
fan. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm the
Yeah,
same. I quite like that too. To be honest, I mean that is why I kind of like Spider-Man too, because he always has that. Well, I mean, at points, I mean, but in the early stuff, like my favorite is the Silver Age Spider-Man stuff, and he always is the underdog in that. He's this kind of little, young kid, and um, the odds are always kind of stacked against him.
yeah. All right. Yeah, yeah. Like again, being an indie guy, not read much Spider-Man either. So sorry about that.
Again, you will on the nerd herd. I should
I'm just
have.
gonna get so many dislikes on this video. People are like, "What? He's never read Batman, never read Spider-Man. What the hell?" But yeah, I'm
But you
sorry.
are you
I'll
are a
get to
new
it.
collector as well, aren't you?
I am new. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've really started going for it this year. Really, but I was saying before, I think what intimidates me about collecting, all the superhero stuff is purely because of the huge runs.
Mm,
And everyone's like, "Oh, you can just jump in here, jump in there." Like, I can't. I struggle. Like if I start, I want to start from the beginning. I've got to do
yeah.
or at least find out what happens in these arcs. Find like explain to me in 5 minutes what happens, kind of thing. I've got to know because I feel like at some point something will reference to that.
Yeah.
Even if it happened like 20 years ago, I'd be like, well, I've got to know now. You know what I mean? So yeah, I always think that I should just start at number one. The number one.
Well, you
Um,
can do. You can go back and start at the amazing, like start at amazing fantasy and read on from there. It'd take you a while, though. I should imagine.
what was that one? Is that Spider Man?
Yeah, that was
Amazing
the first
Fantasy?
appearance, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing fantasy. Yeah,
Wow.
and then you move on to Spider-Man 1,
Spider Man 1. Go.
and then there
And
you go, onward. Only
off you.
1,000 odd to
Yeah.
go after that.
So many. So many.